Leadership in India and in many of the developing parts of the world used to be defined as a person being able to do a job very well, how well you meet your job description. That is no longer relevant, because now increasingly my value or the value of any individual to his or her organization, to his or her society or the community that they live in is less to do with how well they do their own job alone. That is taken for granted. But more important, a person's leadership ability is measured by his or her ability to create the future, to create what will be in the future, not just to do what they are expected to do. Increasingly, therefore, leadership in the context of our country and other countries like ours is to do with a number of capacities. There has to, of course, be the capacity to think or to analyze, which many of us are taught as part of our education system. In addition, it is going to call for a capacity to be able to relate to people and to the challenges that they will face in the future, not the challenges that we have faced in the past. The third capacity that's going to be very vital is not just to analyze and relate, but to be able to do something about it. The willingness and the inclination and the willpower, so that you create more and more leaders who have not just a wishbone where their backbone should be, but to have a strong will to execute and do things. Most important, leadership is about creating a mindset. Wisdom of the past is not necessarily going to help. You could have a country or a civilization or a society with centuries of past wisdom. But more important, it is going to be what brought us here may not take us to our next destination. And therefore, leadership is going to be the need to instigate the willingness to think originally and to think indigenously. One essential quality that is going to be expected of outstanding leaders of the future is not just to meet existing demands in the industry or the market or in society. It is going to be to control the kind of demands that will be there. Our value and our worth is going to be increasingly measured by the kind of legacy we leave behind for our children and the kind of world that we help them to create. Therefore, entrepreneurship or an entrepreneurial spirit is not really about doing a job that is given to us, but it is in creating job and opportunities for wealth and satisfaction and contentment for the generations to come. This country has to become a country of job creators, not mere job seekers. I am extremely delighted with the team that has taken on this onerous responsibility and initiative of creating the School for Leadership Excellence. This is the kind of initiative that has probably been started at a very critical time in our history. Development going forward into the future needs to be indigenous. Gone are the days when we brought in and educated our younger generation on the best practices drawn from developed markets and from Western countries. This is the time now for us to give back to the world and give to our future generations. This is the time when we have to increasingly talk about not just what we can learn from the developed markets, but what the developed markets can learn from us. This is the time when we have to talk about indigenous know-how, which is unique and peculiar to developing markets such as ours. Also, any development that happens in the future, initiated by an institution like the School for Leadership Excellence, has to necessarily be sustainable. If it has to be sustainable, it cannot be elite. It cannot be restricted to just a few people in urban areas. It cannot be restricted to the children of the more economically privileged sections of society. It has to be inclusive. It has to reach out to people who today are economically not as sound as they could have been. And the real results of the School for Leadership Excellence will be seen when it impacts in the futures and the lives of those people who today are perhaps less privileged than their brothers and sisters of this country, and tomorrow become not just equal contributors, but become those who lead this country into the future and other similar developing countries like us. That perhaps will be the proof of the pudding as far as the SLE is concerned.